To welcome everybody here. First regular council of 2014 of the Municipality of Argyll. Do we have anything to add to the agenda, or?
So move we accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favour signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Conflict of interest declaration. Is there anybody around the table that has a conflict with any item on the agenda?
I would like to, I don't know if it's a conflict, but I'd like to, the Bay of Fundy Sea Kayaking Symposium, it's funny because today I sent a Chris
Lockyer.
wanted a quote for a skiff and an outboard for taking videos and pictures and stuff, and I sent him a quote. So I don't know if that's a conflict of interest.
It's not a legal conflict of interest pursuant to the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, because if there is any funding to the sea kayaking, you are not directly benefiting from that. There's no direct or indirect pecuniary interest on your part. You're not a shareholder in the enterprise. You are entitled to benefit thereunder, similarly to anyone else in the community.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll go on.
If you may feel a moral conflict, then it's a good thing that you declared it, but there is no legal.
All right, thank you.
Next item, presentations are none this week. Adoption of minutes. We have the minutes of December the 10th, 2013, the regular council meeting to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt the minutes of December the 10th. All those in favour signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Guess that's the only minutes that we have to approve this week. Next item is business arising from the minutes, and the first item is municipal boundary review. I will ask our CAO to speak to us on, or whoever is designated.
Well, certainly the work, the team that's been working on this, thank you, Mr. Warden, includes myself, Chris Fraughton, and Alex D'Entremont. Most recently joining in. Taylor Harris, of course, is no longer employed with the Public Works Department, and so she was helping us initially. So Alex brings a very considerable skill set around the mapping side of things, and so at our last meeting we talked about the recent correspondence or communication that we had from the province. The province is now releasing information, instructions around what municipal councillors, what councils need to do or need to bring to the public around the boundary review process. They're trying to bring, to assist us, I guess, as they often do, around some of these special projects. This is, in fact, something we do every 8 years. 8 years ago, we decided that we were going to go with 9 councillors. That was what it was prior to that. And there were some changes to the boundaries, even if the number of districts did not change. So what the council asked staff to do is to present what council called a revised 9, because when we looked at our 9 districts as they are currently, we saw that some of the population had shifted in a way that may cause us some difficulty in approving the boundaries without changes. Because what we have to do, and this is a bit of repetition, but we have people in the public that I think that would benefit from this information, is that what we have to factor is a number of things. One is population parity. We need to, and I think everybody's heard of that, at least provincially, around how there should be some equitable representation of vote, not necessarily equal, but equitable, which means that we try our best to have each district with the same amount of electors in them. So you're each representing the same percentage of electors. Secondly, the issue of community, geography. So, for example, if we had an island, a very large island that was populated by 3,000 people, which might happen if the island gets a new bridge, but anyway, sorry, that wasn't funny. Anyway, it was funny in my head. Anyway, so if that happened, that clearly could be a community of specific interest based on their geography. And so you'd have to factor in those kinds of things in your decision. Thirdly is culture. So obviously we have a predominantly Anglophone communities and we have predominantly Francophone communities in Argyll. And so all of these things have been factors in our decisions in the past. So what the UARB does is they give us guidelines. They say ideally, we don't give you too much hard time if you're within a 10% variance plus or minus the average number of electors. They think that's, wow, if you're able to achieve that and your community is accepting of that, that's great. They will accept variances of up to 25% in specific circumstances, i.e. the example of the island, or if you had a predominantly Francophone community that you didn't feel like it should be combined with another community of a different culture, then they do accept those kinds of variances up to 25%. It's extremely difficult to sell a variance above 25%. I don't know that they would automatically reject, but I think it becomes extremely problematic if you're above the 25%. So from the staff's perspective, we tried to meet the 10% variance in every way possible. But in certain circumstances, that didn't quite meet. We didn't quite meet that test, but we certainly tried to stay far away from the 25% variance. We did your revised 9, and we have actually a little bit more information for you today because at our last meeting we were short a couple due to fishing, but we did have a small discussion around it. So there were questions around certain roads. So we made a couple of changes to reflect some of those concerns. So the revised 9 is really not a major revision at all. The biggest revision is actually districts 7 and 8. So I'm reminding some of you, and I mean we'll go through all of it is attached here. We'll go through it, but because District 7's population was slightly lower than it ought to be in order to fit the definitions described, we moved the border of District 7 down into District 8. So District 7 would then take some of the electorate that District 8 would otherwise have had. The other changes that we made were to kind of fix, most of them were to fix errors where a line was drawn and didn't consider, how the road was, right, so how long the driveway was in a road, and we tried to kind of fix problems where one road was split in half. We had issues on Little Egypt Road, we had issues in Gavelton, and we had issues, we also had issues on District 6, I think. Well, maybe not for the election, but there was an identified issue. So we made those changes, and I think what you'll see is the maps that are attached in your agenda reflect those changes. Okay. Also, there's an attachment of 8 pages that indicates, and this work was done primarily by Chris, and it indicates what after the revisions are made, how does it impact the numbers? Okay. So the other thing we learned with our discussion with the province was that they strongly recommended in our submission to UARB, obviously public consultation is paramount to that submission. And as part of the public consultation, they strongly suggested that we provide more than one option to the public in order for them to effectively make a decision as to where they'd like to go. And the reason is that while what you believe to be the proper boundaries, and the community may in fact agree with what you draw, but what the UARB will say is, we have no way to know if 7 or 6 or 5 was the preferred option to the community because you did not present that particular option. So while they don't think it's practical to present 8 options, they would say that to provide more than one option allows for the community to make an informed decision around what they would like to see. So what we did was, based on that information, realizing that you've asked us to do revised 9, we tried to be a little proactive. And so what we did was a revised 7. Well, actually a 7. There's no revised 7. But we did show you an option for 7 probably 6 months ago. Had problems. I think council indicated some of the problems. And so each of you have a map in front of you that indicates that we've actually done some changes. I have an extra copy here if somebody wants an extra copy. Yeah, I don't know. We can actually give this out here too. I don't know how many copies came out of the photocopier, but here's a copy. So this is obviously draft. And what the staff's focus was with 7, obviously if you go from 9 districts to 7 districts, you are going to have a negative impact on communities of interest that are existing today. So the communities of interest that are existing today, in a lot of ways will be altered. And so what we tried to do, regardless of what we actually did in terms of options, there's always going to be a conflict in terms of the communities that are being impacted. So, in our initial shot at 7, we included Comoes Hill, Little River, and Tuscot together, and that was not seen to be. That didn't seem to be a community of interest at all to most people that gave their feedback. So what we went back to the drawing table a little bit and made some slight alterations to Wetchport and Little River Comoes Hill. So in the map that you see, the Comoes Hill, Little River, Plymouth, Upper Wetchport, up to Pleasant Lake would be a district. Basically the line is the line where Tuscot meets Pleasant Lake. Alternatively, we could have used the bridge at Tuscot. That's another option. We had to choose one of 2. That was one. The other change we made in Wetchport was we actually moved the line a little bit more south in order to include more population in the Comoes Hill, Little River district. That actually makes that line closer to what it is today. So what we initially had was the line for what is currently Lucien's district, Lower Wetchport. We had increased it north by a certain level right up to the Black Pond Road. And so because of the numbers and changes, we had to bring it back south. And I believe it's Martin Road, is it? No. What's the road?
Yeah.
Is it Martin Road?
Yeah.
Okay, so Martin Road. So instead of Black Pond, so that's further south.
Does it include the Martin Road?
It does, yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. So that's, again, and this is a draft. I mean, this needs to be discussed and vetted by this group. And so the white district, I call it the white district on your map, includes Morris Island, Surrey Island, Sluice Point, Mears Hill, Hubbard's Point, and Aprons River. That remains unchanged from the initial draft. The numbers worked very well, and we felt that Hubbard's Point and Aprons River were accustomed to being together under old District 1 or under District 1 currently. So and Hubbard's Point seemed as logical to be connected to Emerald's Hill being the same road, so there was some logic around that. Well, hopefully there's logic around everything here, but it's all subject to interpretation. So the District Green includes all of Tuscot, all of Belleville, all of Quinnen, all of Saint-Anne-du-Ruisseau and Rocco Point, but there is a line where I would consider to be, well, it's one of the bridges that separates Saint-Anne-du-Ruisseau from Ilbrook. So that would be That's not the causeway at the church, but that is the small bridge not far from Wilson's Fuels. So that's the causeway that we've always identified, Eelbrook and SAR. Not that they may not consider themselves to be separate communities, trust me, but that's a line that we had to draw. It's a line that we drew there because the Pink District, which incorporates most of what would be District 6, in the existing definition, that particular district was very small, and it was limited in terms of how it could grow. So we had a number of options here. There are more than one. There is more than one way to do this. What we're showcasing here is that East Kempt would actually be a part of Argyll, and I think that probably needs to be discussed because that could equally be attached to the Green District, but other adjustments would have to be made to the Green District in order for that to be accommodated. Okay, so that I think is an area that probably should be discussed further. Also, the fact that we are splitting SAR might be a problem to SAR and may be a problem, quite frankly, to the Pink District. They may not feel connected to that community at all. So again, something to be debated. As well, one of the things that there's a couple of I guess challenges that we have with going from 9 to 7 that are difficult to avoid. One is that if we're going to grow East Pubnico as a district, I'll call it East Pubnico, but forgive me, it includes other communities. In order for that district to become larger, that has to come at the expense of District 8, okay? And I mean, you could say that in order for District 8 to survive, it needs to grow into East Pubnico, I'm just saying, like, but those two districts are neighboring each other, and because of the fact that it's bordering Barrington and we can't grow into Barrington, that particular district presents certain challenges in terms to making it bigger. So as a consequence, it probably gobbles up multiple communities. So the communities of interest might be, well, they're certainly different than they were under 9, and that's unavoidable. And of course, the other piece that we felt that the Pink District really has more of we're trying to focus on the Anglophone culture, and the fact that if the Anglophone community grows into a predominantly Francophone community, that could be problematic as well for both sides. So with the Argyll district, the Pink District, we focused our growth north as a consequence. And that doesn't mean that it's correct, but it means that that's the logic behind some of the decisions that were made. So the good news is that the numbers work really well. But we are fully recognizing that this is not only a numbers game, right? This is all.
Is the District D, which is 996, and if you compare District B with 776, obviously that comes within your 25% tolerance.
Yes, it does.
It does. It seemed high to me, but without having a calculator right off, it is, yeah. But that's the only one that's really a huge difference.
Yes, and District B and A being Wetchport, B being Como Little River, we can play with those numbers a little bit. Like we could increase District B at the expense of District A, but keep in mind that both of them are below the average of electors. So you're not gaining a lot by doing that.
Yeah.
Your average electors are 897 under a 7-district scenario.
That's number.
897 is your average. So when you look at 897, you go 10% up or down. Some of them are, I think they're all within what percentage, Chris?
They're all within 10% except District B.
So that's from a mathematical perspective, that's good. From a community perspective, well, that's for council to debate and for the public to actually tell us whether we have that right or not. So that was a long speech, but and recognizing that you haven't had any occasion to look at the revised 7 map. This is the first time you've seen it. I'm not expecting council to make big decisions around this particular option, but I think we need to probably set a timeline around how we're going to move forward around these 2 options. I would advise against preparing multiple options. Like, we have to be comfortable with revised 9 and with a 7 if we're going to bring that to the community, and build the case for both. And so let the community and its informed be informed and make informed decisions around what they would like to see moving forward. And just as a reminder to council and for those at home, the fact that we're looking at 7, there was a process prior to this, public process, at least with the council, that examined other numbers, other options. So that process eliminated certain options. They for a variety of reasons. Ultimately, there was a preliminary report prepared by staff that compared our region with other regions around similarly sized. We know our population is shifting a little bit, as is every rural community. So we have done that comparison, and 7 was the average. So that number seemed to chime with a lot of, certainly with us as doing it from a staff perspective, but I think it was also identified at the council level as an alternate.
Okay.
Salmas?
Hmm?
Salmas?
Yeah, Salmas. So, do you want to have further look at this and bring it up to table it for our next meeting, or do you have any more recommendations, or would you like to see staff making changes here? Yes, Surratt?
Just a couple of things to our CAO. I see the possibility of maybe moving B a little further to the bridge in Tuscan. That would add you some numbers there, but do you find, and my question to you is, did staff, or do you find that might be going more into the French community? But I was thinking that up to the bridge would be mostly English, wouldn't it? Or are there very many residents there? Because the Hatfields and there's the people that live around there, they're mostly English.
Yeah.
So maybe the B would fit there, or there must be a reason.
We definitely looked at that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, we didn't consider language as a factor.
Okay.
We considered more community as a factor, so
Okay.
community of interest.
Yes.
But you should know that the amount of electors, to the best of our knowledge, between the Tuscan sign and the bridge is 15. So it's not a considerable amount.
It's not a whole,
So one way or another,
you've answered me.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, we definitely considered that, for sure.
thank you. All right.
I just have a question around the process. So let's say for argument's sake that we decide that this is what we're going with, and we take it to the public, and they have concerns that this is not what, do they actually have input and be able to say, well, we don't want SAR split in 2? Like, is that the way it works? Okay, I was
Yes.
just wondering, if we adopt this, this is what goes, and that's, like, where does it go from there?
No, the answer to your question, and it's a good question, I think it highlights, first of all, the answer to your question is it depends how quickly you get going. Because and I think we're actually ahead of it. So we could, in theory, go to the community and say, look, we have not decided here. Here's what we think is best. We need your input, and your input matters because it could make a difference. The technology that we have here versus 8 years ago is considerably different. We can make quick changes to boundaries at the request of our communities. So I hope that the process will be one that the community is engaged enough that they can give us that feedback, and early enough so that we can incorporate that feedback and even come back for a second meeting. You know, that would be, in my opinion, an ideal state. Yeah. I don't see too many changes to a revised 9 because it's really not a big change. I would be surprised if anybody said that's a problem. In fact, it fixes things that were identified as problems. But 7 is tough because it's a big change.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Muse?
I guess some of my questions were answered there as well. As you said, CEO Muse, I don't think we should go there with more than a couple. And I think, based on the numbers, if we're looking at numbers only, this is ideal from what I can see. But I think there is going to be some opposition to where the boundaries are landing from the public, with this. If we bring that to the public, which I know we will, that's where we have to listen to the public, I think. Not just, if it means that we have to change some of the numbers, or even I don't know if we can change the numbers much if we go with 7. I don't know what would happen there if you started moving. I think to get rid of some of the issues that might arise from the 7, I think then your numbers are going to go way out. You know what I mean? Like, I don't believe you'd be able to accommodate the communities and stay with 7 without increasing your numbers way above the 10% or the 25%.
Yeah.
That's what I'm afraid of. But I think this is a good scenario as far as I can see. If we're going to go with 7, another thing too, I don't believe that I would be in favor of suggesting less than 7. I think we have to stick with 7 and 9. I think are two scenarios that we have to present. That's what I would feel more comfortable with. I think if we start reducing more, some people, some of the public are going to be happy because they want us to reduce as much as we can. But they might have. I don't think they see the true picture of what it takes to run this, and So anyway, it's. I agree with this. I like this as a presentation, but I still believe that we're going to get some opposition with some of the boundaries.
Thank you. We definitely will. But at the end of the day, if we make changes after we go to the public, it's the board that decides, the UARB.
Yes,
Sure.
Right.
They will have the last say.
They're going to have
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc?
Just quickly, I just want to give a tip of the hat, I guess, to CEO Muse and the rest of the staff. I think, given the fact that it's not an easy task to reduce down to 7, taking into account all factors that you did, I'm really impressed with this representation. Really, I'm comfortable approving this tonight as an example to go to the public with for 7 for sure. I think you won't get much better than this. I agree, we're going to get a backlash from the community, but I'm sure you could make a perfect situation. You're going to get backlash from someone. What negative responses we will get, they'll get over it. And if 7 is an option we need to look at, to me, I can't see it get much better than this. There was a few issues, 5-6 months ago when we first seen 7, but I feel like they've been fixed as best as they can.
Thank you. I think probably, the big problem that you might have is when you cut a community in half. It's not only moving 2 communities together, but when you cut one in half, that's probably, but, yes.
If I may, Mr. Warden, the question of process has come up, and of course, when you present an option to the community, the community doesn't necessarily understand the process that we've come to this point. And so the concern I have for you and for staff, right, in trying to present the best work is, if we go with a scenario like this, right, there might be a way to present to present it in a way that the communities or the people could provide input before we actually go to like a public consultation session, for example. So there might be a way that we would invite comments on your draft 7 to provide input on that.
And 9?
And nine,
And 9,
absolutely. I'm just thinking out loud at this
Yeah.
time, right? There might
Yeah.
be like, because the process is really ours to own, right? So it can look like we want it to look, but it has certain minimum things that you have to do, right? So one of the things you might do is you say, look, we look at 7 and 9, but in particular 7, we'd like input from certain community groups or certain people around this to get it an idea of how the community might respond. And so you might get that feedback to such an extent that you would recommend a slight change to these community borders before you actually went to present to the public. That is also an option. So that you should have like a smaller group, like, I don't know, and it's not to mean that you didn't want the full community's input. Quite the opposite, you do. You actually want the best information for them. And so you might consider a smaller, what do they call it, a focus group, or you know, some key people in key communities that are impacted the most. The province did this differently when they did their review. They focused their public consultations on the area that were most impacted. So when we had the dropping of the Acadian designation at the provincial level, that independent group came to Clare, came to Argyll, specifically, went to Richemont, and they went because they needed to hear from those communities that were impacted the most, right? So we may want to consider that as part of our process. The process is yours to own, and we can come back with you to you with a process at the next meeting, including, you know, how we're going to do this. But that, again, that's a suggestion. My concern is if you go to the community cold, you might actually get such a negative response that the community that the community may not like 7 at all. And so for all the wrong reasons, you get the wrong input, right? So that's just kind of I guess a suggested course of action, and again, it's entirely up to you.
Councillor Donaldson?
Yes. We already had that discussion at one point about focus groups and going to the community to decide on numbers and whatnot. And basically, I thought we ruled that scenario out. And if we do or don't, it doesn't matter to me. But when we go to whatever public meetings we're going to go to, that is one of the major questions you're going to get is why 7, why 9? Because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say 6 and 5. And we've had that discussion here numerous times. We all agreed 6. You can't break ties with 6. You'll have too many motions that are tied and can't be broke. Large geographical areas that have gone to 5 are having a hard job getting quorums at their council meetings because of work commitments. And when we looked at the numbers, it didn't work out geographically. So we've gone through this to get to where we are now, and this council strongly supported 9, but we didn't feel that it was best to go to the public with just the one option. I find that we're focusing way too much on the 7 when we've already decided on 9 until we get public input, and then maybe we'll change our mind or want to look at it differently. But I find that we're steering ourselves away from what we decided on is basically the way I see it. So let's just go with what we got and see what the people's got to say. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
But we'll be able to explain to them why we're at 7 and 9 and not 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Because we've already gone through that. And whether they like it or not, we don't know that, but there is reasons why we settled at this.
Right. Thank you. Councillor Surratt?
I'd like to remind Councillor Donaldson that it was not unanimous, how would you pronounce that word, for going unanimous for 9. There was a strong person in myself saying that 7 would be a good number to go with, but I was just one of the nays, and I guess it was voted upon to bring 9, where when we got the letter from the, I believe, was from the UARB, that we had to have a second option, and, which is what we have here. I would suggest to council that, why don't we send out a newsletter, like we have our newsletter that goes out every quarter. Why don't we put the 9 and the 7 in there, so people can all have a look, and they're not cold when they come to a public meeting, and this would be in their newsletter, they can have a good look at it at a month prior, and then when they come in, I would be against just to go to focus groups, certain focus groups. If you're gonna put it out to everybody, or don't put it at all. I guess, don't just pick on one, not the other, get everybody to have their input in, so when they come in, they can have their input at the public meetings. That's, and when we do have a newsletter going out every quarter. So I think that would be my suggestion.
Thank you.
And I'd like to apologize to you, I forgot about you.
Well, it wasn't unanimous, but it was decided by council, right? Councillor LeBlanc?
Do we need a motion first to accept this representation of 7 districts before going to the public?
You can do that today, or you can table it. It will require a motion of council in order for us to start that ball and actually present this as your option for 7, because this is clearly draft.
Yeah.
Of course, staff will follow any process that this council decides in terms of how it wishes to move.
Okay, well, I'll make the motion that we accept this representation of 7 districts to take to the public in the future, as well as the previous representation of 9 that we already agreed upon, I believe.
The revised 9.
Revised 9, sorry, yeah.
Yeah,
The 2 to 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 2 that are presented tonight, okay.
thank you. You have a seconder?
I'd like to second that.
Been moved and seconded. Any more discussions or questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried.
Okay, so that
Thank
gives
you.
us very good direction around the 2 options. Thank you very much. And so, council, at this point, you can choose to decide or think about process. I think at this point it's about process. You've made some suggestions here. You have some momentum. It's up to you. Anyway, that's that. So you can choose to decide process today or
Yeah,
not.
I think one thing is what Councillor Surratt kind of suggested, the newsletter. I mean, that's 2 or 3 months away. So that'll bring us, I think we should move a little faster than that. But anyway, we'll find a way. Thank you very much. Good, this thing, there you go. Next item on the agenda, Municipal Administration Building. I'd like to ask Alain also to speak on that, I think, yes.
I can start, but I think Councillors Albright and Muse may have something to add. What I've attached is a most recent, I guess the result of a recent trip that I took. I had some professional development to do in Halifax, and managed to hook up with Wolfville and Windsor on the way up. Those were the 2 buildings that were identified as having fire stations attached to administration buildings. So as a quick reminder, we had identified the possibility, remote or not, of looking at the Eelbrook Fire Station as a possibility of being a combined building. And I guess the long story short, we got some really good feedback on that trip, and that was shared with the committee. I don't know if you want to take over or just let me know if you want us. Okay.
Councillor Albright?
Good, okay. I missed the second meeting because of my leg, but I got all the notes. Basically, to sum up, from the feedback we've received and speaking with the fire department, it doesn't look like combining both buildings together is the best option. We at first thought that cost-wise, it would be a good idea, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it will be the best idea. There were recommendations that said building 2 smaller buildings may actually cost less than building the whole big building. There were other issues with parking, with emergencies. If there is a fire and the fire trucks have to go out quickly, if there's a municipal building attached as well, that may cause some issues, right? If you have seniors coming in to pay taxes, for example, and you have fire trucks zooming out. So they discussed all those different options, and it just didn't seem to be like the best fit, the best idea. Anything else can you think of?
I guess the location of the new
Yes.
building as well is an issue. You know, the property that they purchased now may not be the ideal location. So we're looking at maybe different locations, possible locations, not saying that that's where they gotta go, but we're looking at various locations that may be suitable or more suitable than the property that they purchased now. Even looking at the current location. Their current location is really probably as ideal a location as you're gonna get as far as population, right? For the density of the population. It's very, very close to where they are now. The problem there is they don't own the property, they don't know whether or not they could acquire enough property to use that same location that they have. Whether that would be renovating the one they have plus add an addition, but that's all decisions that they're going to have to make. And I'm not sure what they're looking for as far as council is concerned. If they go along with if they go for a new building, I'm not sure what type of, what our responsibilities are going to be as far as whether we're going to be managing the project or what. But they really haven't come across to tell us what they're looking for from us. Basically, that's it at this point. We're meeting, we've had a couple of meetings, and we intend to have more, with more discussions. And also, I think we have to look at the type of building that they need, or that they, well, need or want, but, you know,
things, right?
it's always, you know, that's always an issue too. I mean, you've got to be careful how big, what type of building
Yes.
you construct.
Yeah.
So basically, we've come up to a point where we've decided that combining doesn't work, it's not the
Yes,
best option.
Not the best option.
And we're moving towards the location. That's kind of one of our next steps. Revamping the plans that they had originally thought of, and because where is the funding gonna come from? It's not gonna be the green globes like we thought may be a possibility. So those are kind of the next steps that we're taking with our next meetings,
For the fire station.
with the fire
With
station.
the fire
Yep, the fire department.
Thank you.
Just,
Deputy Warden?
Okay, so I guess having said that, what's the next step for us for a municipal building?
well, from our perspective, I think what we wanted to do is either investigate or eliminate the possibility of combination. And I think, you know, councillors Muse and Albright, I think, you know, speak from the staff's perspective as well, and also from the perspective of the Eelbrook Fire. They did their own version of pros and cons. They didn't go visit Wolfville and Windsor, but they did their own kind of internal decision-making, and we all came to the same conclusion: it's just not going to work. And the one question we did ask Wolfville and Windsor is, if you had to build a new building, would you do it this way again? And they all said no, for a lot of reasons. Yeah, so, yeah, they're living the dream, or nightmare, depending on what.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they had their challenge, and they wouldn't do it again. And they cited a lot of reasons: plumbing and ventilation, and things that just a lot of structural things. So coming back to the question, so I think we've eliminated that as a possibility. So now we really should be focusing on the retrofit of this compared to the construction of new. Now, we have had some preliminary information on that. We kind of put it to the left because we wanted to make sure that that was something that we would assess properly. I think we've done that. So now we have to bring those two options back to the center and start getting information around that. Very confident that the Green Globe certification would apply in a new construction. And in fact could apply in the construction of a fire station as well, but that's a little bit different in terms of understanding exactly how that might look like. But it is unlikely that a Green Globes would actually apply for a retrofit of this building. But we said that the last time we discussed this, we said we were going to bring in some of our local experts. We do have an engineer that has come in and done an assessment of this building, but what we'd like to understand from some of our local contractors is, what has been your experience with some of these retrofits? Typically, they give you a price and then that's not what happens. They usually hit into problems. At the last, again, just one of the most recent engineering report on this building had recommended changes, and it had recommended, what it would cost to install an elevator and deal with some of the issues of this building in terms of inspection, rules of building code. Codes, thank you. So, and we had identified that cost to be, I think it was very close to $700,000. Now that was just to bring this building to code and have it accessed. That is no additional work. So what you would have is this building with those retrofits to meet code. Some of the problems that we'd have trouble solving in this building is the basement. The basement right now, you'd have to, it says, our Public Works Director says you can fix anything for enough money, but right now the roof, the ceiling in the basement is insufficient height for current code. And so it will cause us a problem moving forward. It's a challenge of this particular building. Can it be fixed? Yes, the cost of which is unknown at this time. So that's some of the challenges of a retrofit. And so, of course, discussions are ongoing, and we'd like to bring you some more concrete information in the near future.
So one thing that we have, I guess, decided here is a joint venture between the fire department of Willowbrook and a municipal building is out of the question.
From a staff's perspective, I would certainly recommend that we cease that
Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
I think that Eelbrook still looks to us for perhaps some leadership around the project management.
Yeah, sure.
And so that's why we're investigating, we're using our resources, and I think that makes perfect sense. You've identified this capital project as a capital project of priority, your council and councils before you. So certainly that makes sense, and I'm not opposed to offering staff services to help them along the way.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Surratt?
Just something maybe, might be picking here, CAO views. That $700,000 on the retrofit, am I right in stating that would include that elevator?
Correct.
Which I don't believe is a code item in this building. If you have steps, you should be able to go up and down. So if I am right in what I'm saying, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that 700,000 could come down to 200,000. So that elevator would be a huge price, which I don't think we need code-wise.
Yeah,
Oh.
I know that we could solve the accessibility problem. I think we can solve the accessibility problem without having an elevator.
Yes.
There are other options.
So we would drop that pricing.
I don't think it would drop to 200, however.
Okay.
Yeah, it would still be in or around the $500,000 mark.
Okay.
Because it probably costs, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, right, but it's probably I think it was $250,000 to put an elevator, but then you'd have to replace that cost with something else. So that would, right, so, you might be able to get away with a lift. You know how those lifts work, it's not a full-fledged elevator, that would be less expensive. You could also, I'm not sure that you could practically put a ramp in the space that we have, and the code restrictions around that. I think we've investigated that fairly thoroughly. That's a problem in this particular location. But you might be able to do a lift.
Fair.
Yeah, so that number could look different if you did something differently, for sure. Now, full transparency around
Thank
that.
you.
Okay, thank you. So we don't need a motion or anything on that, we just,
No, I think we need to bring a more comprehensive report to your
That's right.
attention in the near future.
thank you. Next item, Warden's report. I hope you had a lot of time to read that. It hasn't been very busy except for like I said in there, except for Christmas parties and,
You make it up for the rest of the time.
so, it's been very good, actually. Good holiday season. Councillors' reports. Everybody have a report? Councillor Surratt?
Yes, I'd just like to report on a few items I've been involved in. We had a meeting with the bridge celebration, the Indian Schools Bridge celebrations. We had 2 or 3 meetings, in fact. And the opening, we've had a tentative date, which is June the 21st, as the celebration for the ribbon cutting of the bridge. We'll probably have some old cars will be, I think I mentioned this at council, but since there's people in the public here that probably haven't heard it, and they come from the area, we'll be walking the old bridge out, so out with the old, and walking on the new bridge back to Surratt Island, in with the new. So that's the plan for the ladies that live in my area. That's a plan. Also, we'll have ice cream. We're gonna have some music, country and western music, probably. Hopefully, most people won't mind that. We'll have antique cars. There's also going to be a nostalgic stroll through the ages, which is wedding dresses of the period, starting in about 1943 to 2010. And we'll have models that'll be modeling, because some of the ladies said they wouldn't fit in their dresses anymore. So anyhow, and there'll be like little stories about when they got married, what time it was, little oddities. So that's part of the celebration. And then the floating of the bridges are on the 5th of the old bridge is the 15th of July. That's the plan, to float it on barges. So we're expecting a huge gathering for that too. Further on, I'll jump from there. We was at a meeting today with the Municipal Alcohol Project. And what that is the Southwest Health have got a grant from the government, Health and Wellness. And what they're doing, they're trying to get 10 kids in high school from Paraba, 10 from the Yarmouth High School, and there's 10 from, I believe it's Drumlin also. Mm-hmm. So that's 30 youths, and they're going to be bringing them together to see what they see as issues with alcohol in Yarmouth County. They'll be working on this project for about a month and a half. The 30 youth, they'll be going to an overnight, maybe at the Grand Hotel overnight, or to a little resort somewhere that won't cost too much money, brainstorm, bring some parents, even invite some councillors to go there, maybe to learn from their perspective what is, some of the problems they have, with alcohol. They see something like a parent comes home and says, I'm stressed out, I gotta have a drink. And you've got 2 kids or 3 kids or 4 kids or 1 kid standing there listening to that. And I mean, it happens, right? Also, let's face it, one of the things we were told also was that because of alcohol, there's a lot of sexual violence going on in our county is not good at all. And there was a person from the Shift organization, a lady that was speaking to us, and she has some youth groups involved, and she said, you would not believe. Drugs, it's a huge issue with drugs, but she said the sexual violence that goes on is mainly alcohol related. And it's a huge problem with the youth. So we're gonna be, they'll be talking about that, and at the end of this project, 5 of the youth will come to each council, the 3 councils, and make a presentation to us from what they've learned. So I think that's a time for us to open our ears to our youth, and I think it's a worthwhile project. It's not costing anything to the units. It's money coming from the government, and I think it'll be well spent. Couple other quick things, I won't hold you here. We had a meeting with Waste Check. Waste Check, serious shortage with money, and the Airport Corporation, we had a meeting with that, and we'll be discussing that tonight, and we have a lot of issues with the airport too. So, that's it.
Thank you. Councillor Albright?
I just wanted to report on recreation. Sorry, Councillor Bork. We had a meeting last week. Basically, before Christmas, in our November meeting, we had Julien Boudreau come and do a PowerPoint presentation on our infrastructure throughout the municipality. So it was a slideshow presentation, and we got to see everything that there is. And we had a session last week on prioritizing what we feel we need to work on in the upcoming year, because budgets are coming out now. So we went through kind of everything that we had, and we had a scale. We voted on what we thought, how much community involvement there was, for example, how much, we didn't talk about cost, though. That was one of the things, because there's lots of things we don't know ourselves, what it would cost to fix this or to fix that. But we went through a whole scale of kind of ranking our infrastructure, and we came up with our top 5 or 6. So our next meeting, which is early in February, we're going to look at those 5 or 6 and make some decisions around what we're going to work on next, because budgets are coming out. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Muse?
It's been pretty quiet since our last meeting, for sure. Not a whole lot of committee meetings. One thing I attended, and you talked about Christmas, I attended the New Year's levy for the municipality of Yarmouth and the town. They get together, right, and they alternate. One year it's at the municipal office, the other year it's at the town office. I'm just wondering, has Argyle ever done that? I'll tell you, it's good. It brings people together, like people of the community just come in. It's just a meet and greet. That's all it is. They serve a light lunch, and I was asked by some people why Argyle wasn't doing this, but is that something that Argyle has ever done? Do you know?
I don't think so. We've talked about it a lot, but we
Never
have
done
never
it.
done it.
No, I think. No, I think it's a good idea myself. Like I said, it brings some of the community people out. I mean, I saw some of Argyle people at that as well,
Yeah.
a few, and because it's open to the public. It's open to anybody. No, just I kind of enjoyed it. You get to speak to a lot of people and meet people and whatever. Other than that, like I said. I haven't had a whole lot of meetings through the holidays since our last meeting, so our meetings are starting again to flow this week, next week, our committees and that, so that's all.
Thank you. Deputy Warden?
I guess on the levy note, I know that in the past, the Musée Acadien in West Pamlico, they've had New Year's levy. I'm not sure if they had it this year.
I don't think so.
I don't think so, but in the past they have, so. So that's, I guess, a New Year's levy in our municipality, not
In the municipality.
Not by the
Not by,
municipality.
yeah.
Right,
Yeah. Thank you. We go now to the CAO's report. We've all had a chance to read it. Do you have any questions for our CAO or comments? Or do you have any comments on your report? Are you going to wait for questions?
I always have comments, but I'll defer to council's questions. We'll start with that first.
Apparently it's a good report. Councillor Donaldson?
Yes, I was reading on the email the other day that we received some money for like a community development officer, and it's how is that gonna work with the REN we're trying to set up? I see you have it in your report here. Can you explain a little clearer, like how the two will coexist?
Okay, sorry, the first part of the question was, we receive funding for?
I believe I was reading in Brenda's report that she secured some funding for, an economic development for Argyle? Or
Oh.
did I misread that?
Well, it wouldn't be for, I don't know that it would be for economic development for Argyle, but it would be easy to read Brenda's report and read, I found funding for.
Okay, yeah.
Because she seems to be, that's certainly her area of strength and expertise. I'll say that one of the things that we're doing, like we have, as you know, we have the economic development subcommittees for Argyle, and
Yeah.
they're just starting to get going. They're going to have some meetings. This will be their third round of meetings in January. And what we want them to do is just focus on the projects they think are most important. We do have a budget that council had approved last year. I don't expect to use a lot of that this year. I figure that'll be used next year. In terms of how that flows with the REN, first of all, will only be up and running in April of this year at best.
Okay.
The board of directors has been selected, they have been notified, and so they have a meet and greet in Clare on the 13th of February, so they'll be able to meet each other for the first time. And their first job will get the CEO hired for that organization. I expect the REN to focus on navigation and investment attraction and retaining and expanding existing business. So I think what will happen at the REN level is that might be that might be higher level. So an example of what the REN might take on is, let's say that their priority is the mink industry. And so they want to do a project or find funding in order to incite people to get in the mink industry business. And I'm just throwing that out in the air. That would probably be for the region, whereas the Argyle group might focus on the things that they need on the ground for their own business. So that might be a more community economic development initiative that the REN will absolutely not do. So signage, for example, I know was mentioned in the Tusket group as something that we could help businesses do and actually be a wayfinding opportunity for the tourists that will come off the boat. So those kinds of projects, I don't expect the REN to take on. They might assist, but those projects, if we didn't have the Argyle group, would probably not be done by the REN. Is that clear?
Yep.
Okay. Should also note that we take advantage of, that's kind of a weird way of saying it. A better way of saying is we partner with the CDENE, the French Economic Development Organization, and their economic development officer is in this building. And he works very closely with Brenda. They have actually varying talents. One has a lot of experience in banking and fish processing. That's his background, Gilles. And Brenda knows where to go to get the money. So it's a really nice combination that is just starting to show some promise. It takes a while for the community to understand that service is available to them. So that's a really long answer.
Thank you.
Apologize, Councillor Dawson.
Councillor?
I need some clarification too, because the emails just keep bang coming at you, and it's
Yeah.
hard to keep things sorted out.
Okay.
Yeah. Councillor Muse?
Just, do we have, how's the ferry, not the ferry restoration, but the terminal restoration, that coming along fairly on schedule? Are we going to see a place for the ferry to dock?
We think so, yeah.
Ready to adjourn?
No, it's going pretty good. There's a lot of work to be done there. I think the contractor to do the cleanup has completed their
Okay.
work.
First
So
on site?
correct,
Yeah.
and I believe Garian Construction has the contract for the reconstruction piece. I don't know if it's the full piece. Obviously, there's some pieces of work around the infrastructure on the port side or wharf side that, I have less familiarity with, but in terms of, lining up the work, it seems to be coming along. Weather so far has been okay. The winter was rough, but the work was indoors. That needed to be done. So the schedule is tight, and I think we're still within our confines of schedule. So that's the town that actually is managing or secured the funding, and the Industrial Commission is organizing the logistics.
Thank you. Councillor Donaldson?
Yeah, just to let the rest of council know that if they didn't see it tonight on the CBC Supper Time News, Greg Shea was on, they were interviewing him in the terminal to do with the progress of the project. And a part of the article was about how much ahead Yarmouth is of Portland, because there's absolutely nothing going on the Portland side as of yet. So that was a concern. So that was on the news
Do
tonight.
they have major renovations in Portland?
Well,
It's a fairly new terminal, but
I know
I
that.
suppose it has to be tweaked
But-
to fit the new ferry probably or something, yeah. Thank you. Councillor Bork?
You just took the words right out of my mouth. Listen to the same, I listened to the same report.
Somebody else seen it or heard it too. so.
Thank you. Deputy Warden?
I guess I'm looking at your report and looking at the West Pimlico sewer treatment report from our Department of Public Works, John Sullivan. Since I am the chairman and the sewer plant is in my district, I guess the plant operation has been working well with no mechanical problems, and we've, according to the report, we've had an order and we're, we've been doing better with it. But yesterday, with the sunshine and the westerly wind, the smell was still around.
Interesting.
So it just happens that my brother lives nearby, and he, usually reminds me when this happens, and not only my brother, but other people. So I don't think we have eliminated the smell.
Okay.
Something that is we're going to have to work on. It is, smell is a smell,
Yeah.
and people don't like it. So.
It was never, first of all, it was never designed to smell, so that's kind of contrary to its design.
Yeah.
We do know that it's isolated to one of the two geotextile bags, and that bag is probably very soon set to come off.
Yeah.
So we hoped, we've tried a number of different things, the inexpensive routes, keeping in mind that we are inconveniencing the residents at the same time. The most expensive option was largely unappealing to us, perhaps very appealing to those in the community. So I think that when the winter breaks, that bag is probably set to come off anyway. So one way or another, that will be resolved.
Yeah, I'm hoping, because some of the residents have offered some of their suggestions, and I really don't want to share them here.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'll make sure the Public Works is advised.
Yeah. Thank you. Too bad we have to ship all that stuff in your district. That's the way it is. It's got to go somewhere. Any other questions for the CAO?
Oh, my goodness gracious.
If not, we'll go on to other business. Destruction of documents, I think that's one of your
Yeah.
CAO views. Just old documents, I guess?
Yes,
Yeah.
this is the destruction of these documents. They start with the archivist's work. He culls through the work, and the recommendation here. I've gone through these documents. They are to be destroyed. Most of them financial that are here. We keep generally 7-8 years, behind. In this case, we are destroying 2004, 2005, so that'd be, what, 8 years, if I did the math right? And I would recommend that, that council approve the document attached, the affidavit attached, so that we can destroy these documents.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to destruct these documents. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Next item, emergency funding request, Yarmouth Airport Corporation.
Mr. Warden, before getting into that item, I just wanted to, I mean, you've already passed the motion. This is just for information. We do not, just for your information, do not destroy audited financial statements. We retain the audited financial statements forever.
Or minutes or anything.
Correct. There's a,
Oh,
yeah.
Canceled checks.
Yeah, these are, yes, that's right. These are very detailed accounting, like tax roll, interest charges, the detail around, but the summary documents are kept forever. And certainly, if it had any historical value, Peter would not let me destroy it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
very good, thanks for that.
Thanks for that. Sorry about
Did you want to speak on the airport?
Sure. I'm not going to go through the history that's attached here. You've received that. Not all of you were here 10 years ago when we signed the agreement with our partners in Yarmouth. The Yarmouth International Airport Corporation is requesting emergency funding one time. The total is $150,000. Our portion of that funding amounts to $47,500, if you did the math right. And the history around why that number is 31% is well documented here, and you can see by the agreement which has been signed by the municipalities. That was their commitment to support the airport. Certainly when they signed that agreement 10 years ago, it had indicated a minimum investment, and the minimum investment is nowhere near the number that we are contributing today. I wanted to give that some of the background financial information as well. We attached a 10-year chart that indicated some of the trends over the years. There's a year that it spiked up high. I think the highest year was, I think it was 2009 or 2010. 10, thank you. So, and then kind of went down a little bit, but there's a couple of reasons why this has occurred. I've tried to explain it in the report, some of the reasons why this has occurred. Certainly when we got into the agreement with the Yarmouth Airport, we were not paying a general manager. It was actually a volunteer doing the operations management of the airport, which is, if you think about it, a fairly considerable contribution towards an organization. So, but at some point it became clear that we needed to engage somebody to do that and not simply have a volunteer to do that, although he certainly did a very good job. In some of the years in question, the budget is higher than actual, particularly in 2013. We also see it in 2011 and in some way 2012. The airport actually underbilled us in a couple of years. We never adjusted it. We paid what was billed. But it was in the years where Claire participated as a partner. And so when Claire participated as a partner, the billing made an assumption that the Claire contribution was to reduce our contribution, but that was not the case. It was supposed to be over and above our contribution. So part of the reason why they're looking for funding now, part of it is that. Part of it is the fact that they did not, in fact, receive the amounts that they had budgeted to be received in those particular years. We were okay to pay less at the time, but clearly some of that is caught up to the situation. We've also had a spike in capital investments that needed to happen, and we did focus in 2013, and you see the spike in 2012, 2013, with the absence of a SWASDA or any sort of regional economic development. The airport board decided that it would invest some money in trying to attract economic development opportunities to the airport. that came at a cost. There's an investment that was required in order to get there. I do know that the town has discussed this already, and I know that they've approved it. I know that the municipality has yet to discuss this particular request. We have actually three board members, Lucien being recently replaced on an interim basis by Guy, which is actually quite good, because then another councillor can be briefed on our current situation. I'll also say that the audited financial statements were presented at our last meeting, and the audited financial statements presented a picture, in my view, that in a sentence says they have a short-term working capital deficiency of $150,000. So the request is very much in line with what the financials are saying. From our perspective, legally, we have an obligation with our partners. There is an obligation that's attached here. However, this request is beyond your budget, and certainly beyond my ability to approve without council's discussion, debate, and approval, or not. So I think that's enough of a summary.
Thank you. Councillor Surratt?
I guess maybe I can start the discussion a little bit, see what the other councillors have to say, but I've gone to two of the meetings, and then my counterparts, Lucia and Calvin, have been there for the past year at least, if not more, Calvin himself, I'm not sure. But anyhow, you know more about it. I've kind of kept quiet and kept, how do you say, put a plug in my mouth and take the plug out of my ears and put it in my mouth to listen to what was going on, because there's a lot of catching up to do, you know, and that. But I see this, the deficiency is actually $280,000 actually, but at this point, what they're asking for is 150, because that's the cash flow, that's what they've got missing.
Yeah.
The CEO could maybe...
You want me to clarify the difference?
Yeah, what's the difference, the 280 and the 150?
The 280 is making an assumption that the prior contributions from the municipality of Clare will have to be returned to them.
Okay.
Because the auditors could not in a clear way establish that money is to be contributed to the airport in the future, it had to show it as an obligation. Okay? So the reality is that the airport will make every and all effort to continue its dialogue with Clare. Clare has already made a commitment to contribute 30,000 of its existing, like it had forwarded money. Okay, it was not revenue. It had forwarded money, and it always had the option to opt out. And so that's why it was never shown as revenue.
And take their money back with them.
Correct. So what has happened is, so they contributed over 6 years about 210,000,
Yes.
give or take 10,000. And so so recently they made a commitment to forgive or contribute $30,000 a year for the next 3 years. And so that took 90,000 of that number and shifted it to revenue. Okay, so it doesn't mean that it's showing as an obligation on the financial statement, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to pay it. It means that there is still work to be done around the commitment of that funding. And so if it's Claire's intention to, after 3-year time, renew another contribution scenario, then that obligation disappears with no financial obligation from from it actually gets shown as revenue. So that's the difference
That's
between
the 280 and the
two.
150.
Yeah.
Okay, if I could keep on, Mr. Warden. As we see, it's a huge investment from our, it's not in our budget, it's a huge investment, 47,500, and I realize we do have an obligation there. But if we look back at what the commitment was in 2005, and how this commitment has grown from the 300,000 that was requested, and now we're into, I looked at the budget, it's around, am I right in saying roughly $600,000?
Last year's budget was $660,000 asked of the 3 units.
After the 3 units, right?
Our portion was 210.
So our share has grown up from roughly 100,000 to where we are at now. The agreement is due to come in 2015, comes up in 2015. I know I'm rambling a little bit on, but here's to my point. When I looked at the agreement, The agreement, original agreement of 2005 shows that, and probably for good reasons, I wasn't there, but the taxes, the municipality of the District of Yarmouth and the town, the airport belongs in their districts. So they're allowed to tax the taxable assessment on the property, they're allowed to collect $124,000 out of that. So their actual share in the last 9 years, because they've collected that money, and it was in the agreement, don't get me wrong, their actual share has been less than what they're given, in my opinion. I know they're collecting the taxes. I feel that we've been shafted. I feel that there should have been maybe, but I can't change that, but there should have been a grant in lieu of taxes. Instead of the $124,000, maybe take $50,000. But anyhow, I know I can't change that. It was an agreement, you follow with what you've signed. But I feel Argyle has been shafted. Now they're coming and crying for another $47,500, which we've signed an agreement, we've got to go there. I'm totally against this, but where I see no choice but to vote for it, what do you do? But I'm going to tell you one thing. I will remember this, and one of my colleagues, Councillor Donaldson, if you don't mind me naming your name, has certainly been vocal on the airport, will not go with an agreement like this again when the agreement comes in 2015. I would like to add to this that we're looking at waste check right now in our meeting yesterday. There's an $80,000 shortfall from the RFB. The RFB is the Resource Recovery Fund Board. Funds our waste check, which takes care of the programs for our recyclables and garbage and that. They're seeing a shortfall on their end. They have $80,000 less that they're funding waste check. The units have to come up with 300% more money from our share into waste check in this new budget coming out. The clinics are losing, I may be wrong, not totally wrong, but the two clinics we have are losing $180,000 roughly per year. If we took the money that we're losing in all these places, I realize the clinic, it's an investment. People need doctors, but we are still losing money. But I know if I went to the public and asked them, do you mind our share of the $180,000 for doctors, or would you like us to pull out and close the clinics? I bet you my answer would keep the clinics open. So that, maybe I'm a little wrong on that one. It's a service we're providing to our public, the taxpayers are paying for it. My thing is this, funding these projects that are losing us money, how much money could we put in investment in Argyle if we didn't have to fund these places that are losing money? And I think we have to take a strong look at this in our budget for 2014, 2015, because we cannot keep on funding these places that are losing money. The Industrial Commission, Domtex, is in the point of losing one part of the Industrial Commission. That's if Councillor Donaldson can correct me, or Councillor Burke. I think Domtex is in the $90,000, $100,000 deficiency of funds this year again, that portion of the Industrial Commission.
We'll know Monday night, we have another meeting.
Yeah, we're having our meeting, so so we seem to be,
We'll be there Monday
yeah,
night.
we seem to be putting a lot of money in these money-losing projects. They were probably good when they started, 10 years ago, whatever. But you know what? We have to have a strong look at this stuff, because we have economic development in our own community that we have to put this money and not put it out in a huge hole. That's all I have to say for the moment.
Thank you.
Coming back to the original, subject, the airport. You said that, CA Muse, you said that the airport had underbilled us. So what's that amount that we've been underbilled?
It would be our portion of $40,000 a year for a period of 3 years. So just to do the quick calc.
31% of 120?
Yeah, so it's about 40. 120
Yeah.
times 0.31 is 37.
37.
So 37 over, assuming the full 3 years is in play, which it's a pretty good assumption, that would equate to underbillings just a shade over 37,000.
Okay, so 37,000, let's say for argument's sake, you're looking for 47.5. Okay, So if we were underbilled, you know, do we owe that money? You know, do we not? You know, I guess.
Part of it.
Part of it,
Yeah.
maybe. So, you know, you take that 37 plus 10 and a half, you get your 47 and a half, okay? And don't worry, Councillor Surratt, I agree with you, you know, when we first originally got into the airport, you know, we got into it, so we had ownership, and, you know, in a very, you know, an important piece of infrastructure that we couldn't afford to lose in our community. 10 years later, or 12 or 13 years later, you know, I might, you know, change my mind on that, but still an important piece of infrastructure. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc.
First off, I also agree with Councillor D'Archimont and Councillor Surratt. I think the original agreement, looking back in hindsight, obviously I wasn't around at the time. It's a shame it was done that way, and I believe in the future when we do get a chance to renegotiate, things are definitely going to be done different, especially if I have anything to say about it. It's been a learning curve the past year that I've been on the board of the airport. There's definitely some deficiencies there. There's things that gravely need to be worked on. It's actually sad, but I feel like things will move forward from here on up in a positive way. I also have to voice, I appreciate you taking my position there while we were out fishing. If it's okay with you, Councillor Surratt, we'll leave you there just in case, because you know we have issues to deal with at hand. It seems here, but I will be attending any meetings that I can make it to. Right. So if that works with you, I'll be there. That being said, there's also people are quick to point out with the airport. It's a lot of people. It's easy to say you drive by and you see a bunch of buildings with campers in it and nothing going on, but there's a lot of factors and a lot of things that go on at the airport that you really can't forget. I know it's discouraging. That, like I said, there's a lot of negativity around that airport right now. But just for an example, you take our population. How many of us are fishermen? We're on the water, risking our lives day in and day out. Well, if an accident were to happen and you have a Seahawk helicopter searching for a missing person or a missing vessel, and its search time is cut down from 8 hours down to 4. Because it has to refuel in Greenwood, it's a serious situation to think about right there. So before you throw a lot of negativity around the airport, it does have its pros, it does have its advantages to have it here, and we can't forget that. Not taking away from the fact that it does have its issues, and we will certainly be looking at different options in the future. But it's not a loss like most people would put it out to be.
Okay. So what is the request, the Council, the question on the emergency funding? What is the wish of Council?
I'd like to make a motion that we, our vow, it's our obligation, that we do the funding of $47,500 as requested or as per our contractual obligation.
And I'll second that motion. A question for the CAO. So that emergency funding will come from where?
Thank you for the question. What I've done is I've looked at our current fiscal position, our most recent fiscal position. I'm fairly confident that the funds can be earmarked from our current budget. So I don't envision a requirement to go into reserves or any other, reserves. I think that it will be funded with, we are still anticipating a surplus for this fiscal year. Some of the things will be deferred into next year, but I fully expect that this amount will be absorbed by the current rate in the current year.
Thank you, CAO Muse. Question?
Questions being called for. All those in favour signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Motion carried.
Was that recorded?
Pardon me?
Do you want your name recorded?
It's been recorded for 10 years, but
We want to know about this time.
it's fine.
Okay.
Good.
That wasn't the answer to my question.
Correspondence and for information, Tri-County Regional School Board. Yeah, we'll look after that. I guess there's a lot of red light, school bus red light violations, getting to be a serious problem, so I will, if it hasn't already, I guess the school board already brought it to the attention of the RCMP, but I will bring that up at the Police Advisory Board,
Perfect.
yeah. Yes.
I guess on this matter, I guess I'm just trying to figure out why all of a sudden, in 2014 or 14, we have more violations than before. Do we have more cars on the roads? Do we have more irresponsible drivers, people texting?
Is that, I know I read the letter, is that what they're saying, that there's a lot more, or is it's been a lot all along, right?
Oh, okay.
I think, but anyway, maybe there's been a spike or.
Maybe
more.
I misunderstood.
Well,
but,
you're probably right.
all right.
Okay, but I will look after that.
What we got?
Oh, okay, Donaldson?
I must comment because since I retired from lobster fishing last fall and decided to become quote-unquote a professional driver and driving the big trucks, it's amazing at some of the stupid stuff that you see people doing around big trucks and school buses. I've seen it down in the Woods Harbor area. So when I read 42 reports of red light violations, based on what I've seen in the last 3 months, it don't surprise me one bit.
Yeah, you've seen them all, eh?
I've seen just about anything you can possibly see, even cars right in underneath the trucks.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know where they think you're gonna go, but anyhow.
Thank you. Submission of final copy of the MCAP attachment, one page. This is just for information, I guess.
Just so that council knows that it's met its obligation.
Yes, yeah,
We are to be congratulated, that's great.
yeah.
Yes.
Mark Fury, our minister. He'll be here in the end of the month?
I think tentatively the 28th of January, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure on whether that date's been confirmed or the time. There's been
Yes.
some movement around that.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, he told me last fall that he wanted to go around and meet everybody, with all the municipalities and Bay of Fundy Sea Kayak Symposium. No, that's a questionable one.
I was supposed to send an email on this. I just remembered now. So I'll send you the voicemail version of it. For those of you who weren't here for the presentation, Chris Lockyer did actually a very good presentation on last year's results. Last year we had provided $4,000 to assist this organization do the event. They're looking at bigger, better, badder, I don't know, maybe not badder, but certainly a lot more interest, a lot more excitement around the event coming. We deferred a decision on the day of the presentation because typically we don't make a decision on the presentation, but he's given us a bit of a deadline. I don't think it's a hard one, but I think I think he needs to know, and I think it was February is the date he gave us in order to determine whether or not how he's going to move forward with this project. The difficulty council has is that when we take this ask and we put it to the test on your policy, it doesn't fit. So if we look at the policy that we just changed in December, it says it has to be emergency one-time request. Well, you might get away with emergency, but one time you wouldn't, because not only did this happen once before, but it's expected to happen again the year after. So we're met with a bit of a quandary. We're met with a situation where your policy, a motion to approve this now would be contrary to your policy. However, to simply tell the gentleman, look, apply for April, you'll know in May, is probably not acceptable in his particular circumstance. So you're left with, probably three options. One, to make a motion to go contrary to your policy, and then immediately thereafter change your policy, because it's obviously not working for you. The second option is to perhaps develop some sort of a comfort letter to say that we will, that this is the figure that we're comfortable, but we cannot make this commitment solid at this time. Please apply for the grants to organization and the normal processes, and then we'll confirm the amount in May. That might be enough for his purposes in order to get some comfort around the funding, or to reject. I mean, that's always an option.
That's
And it's
all
like, not reject, but just say simply, look, you have to wait like the others. We're not gonna say yes right now, we're gonna wait for the process. So, that's really what you're left with. Well, I'll stop speaking now, because I think that's probably cue for discussion.
Councillor, Deputy Warden.
I guess I'm not exactly sure what we should do, but I know in this instance, this is a world-class event in Argyle. We've been talking about things and money going to other places, i.e., the town of Yarmouth, joint ventures with the municipality. Here is an event, world-class, in our own municipality. So to me, the amount is a no-brainer. I had the chance to go to the banquet last year, and Councillor Muse also. And I don't know how many people were at the old Argyle in there. There must have been 120. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, probably. I don't know if the fire marshal, what he will say. But anyway, regardless, I have never seen, it was a bunch of really excited, psyched up group of people, enthusiastic from all over the world. And
Southern states, from England, from
all over the world.
Yeah.
It was just amazing, and those people came into our area. They were sea kayaking in the end of Pumlico Point. They were eating at Dennis Point Cafe. I saw them around Dennis Point. That's where I hang around, so that's where I would have seen them. But it was a world-class event put on in a world-class setting here in Argyle and in the Tuscan Isles. So I guess that's my 2 cents worth on that subject. Thank you.
Thank you. Surratt?
Certainly, I would say the same as Councillor Dartmouth said. From what I've talked to the people that were down, some of them were kayakers, I even talked to one of the coaches, and they couldn't believe the hospitality that we have here and how well they were received. I guess going to the, I have no problem. I'll vote for this, for the amount. I have not even a question. Here's my quandrum, or whatever how you pronounce it. To me, a letter stating that we are comfortable with this, and ask him to send an application. That is our policy, or we got to scrap the policy, which I've opened my mouth enough at these meetings to have. I'll probably be the first one now to vote against it. Now that, because I certainly would like to see these people come back after all the mountain I done in 4 years for this policy. And look, so if you do something wrong, you may as well admit it. So, but I know. I'm just throwing this out. I don't know where to turn here. So, listen to my fellow councillors what they have to
Thank
say.
you. Councillor Muse?
This is an event that we fund a lot of events in Yarmouth County that Argyle per se doesn't benefit a whole lot, because when these events are in the Yarmouth in Yarmouth, they eat in Yarmouth, they sleep in Yarmouth. This is one event I can say that Argyle actually benefited fully with. I mean, they used the old Argyler, like you said, they ate at the at Dennis Point. They used our restaurants. They used our did they stay? I don't know where they stayed.
Probably bought gas from Guy.
And they probably bought gas from me.
would have stayed in Yarmouth
Because of the accommodation, yeah. But we did benefit.
Councillor?
Yeah, we benefited.
Yeah.
Argyle really benefited out of this. When it comes to the funding, if we stay with the policy and we give him this funding, that kind of ties our hands for the next one. I think it does. I mean, if we have a policy and we stick to it, we can do it for this time, but I'm afraid that next time, it won't be able to happen this way. But no matter what we do, the policy states that April and May is when they can get the funding, right? I mean, there's no other way that they can get the funding. I think we're all very comfortable. I think that the council here, the majority and probably unanimous, that we want to fund this event. Would a letter stating that, can we do that, that we are comfortable with that? They know they will get the money? And
You got it worded in a certain way, probably.
I might offer up another solution. See, so what we did was, with the policy, we always wanted to have an exception to the rule, right?
Yes.
Because we knew we would always get a request outside of that period, and for a variety of different reasons. And so when we modified the policy, we tried to word it as such so that it wouldn't be easy necessarily to fall outside of those 2 dates, but that they would have to support a certain guideline. And the guideline is as follows. I think I'm getting older.
You are.
No, I mean, we're all getting older,
Yeah.
but I think I'm getting older. These words don't look the same as last year at this time. I'm hoping it's
getting older
I'm,
when
ho-
you
I'm
look.
hoping it's simply the zoom in feature that's wrong, and I'm in denial. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm in denial. Okay, so here it is.
You're slowing down too.
Yeah, I'm in the prime of my life. Oh, it's okay. I deserve it. If you're making fun of me, I deserve it. Here it is. No, that's not it. Oh, my dear. Just trying to find it in the policy.
Donaldson, while we were waiting, did you have something to say?
No, pretty well, everything's been answered.
Okay.
Other comments.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have one? Did one come?
Yeah.
Just curious, I wasn't at the presentation. I looked for it in the minutes, couldn't find it. Either it wasn't there or they maybe didn't do this. Did they request funding from other municipal units?
Yes.
They did.
Yes, it did.
Okay. Just we didn't mention that this evening, and I was thinking of all the talk going around how we invest in other municipalities or units. I was just making sure that they did request from other. And I'm sure no decision has been made there yet. I wouldn't assume, no. Okay.
They gave last year.
Yes, they did,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
As well as, I was going to ask if room nights were booked actually in Argyle, and I'm sure they were
Yeah.
during the symposium.
Yes, they were.
I know the Argyler was, for sure. Yeah, okay, good. And then lastly, I was gonna ask if we can just send a letter, which is what Councillor Muse brought up, if we could send a letter approving it in theory if it goes against the policy, which I believe I'll ask frantically.
Thank you. Well, that's a solicitor, what he has to.
Well, I don't want, I don't
You-
want
you're gonna wait
to ruin
now.
the CAO's train of thought, because he may have the solution, and I'm just gonna suggest an alternate, so.
Well, one of the alternates is to actually bring this policy for modification at least a week before your next meeting. Because as you know, your policies can be amended with a week's notice. That's probably where you were going.
Nope.
No, okay. So you could, in theory, defer the decision today, give instruction to staff to modify the wording. That's an option. I'd like to find the wording first, getting there.
I might get involved in that.
And you could change the wording to perhaps be a bit more inclusive, and that might be and not necessarily to change it for only them, but perhaps to be a bit more inclusive in terms of these special events, because really we did it like in extraordinary circumstances, and perhaps the wording was too harsh. Yeah.
Could we put extraordinary circumstances in the policy?
It's currently in,
That's what
it's
it is
currently in the
now.
policy, and so that's what,
That's
that's
our
what's
problem.
causing a bit of our problem.
Can it be funded outside of grants? Can it be categorized as something else other than grants?
Tourism?
Ooh,
If it walks like a duck.
That's probably the answer, yeah.
Yeah, looks like me.
What reaction I elicited with 6 little words. Anyway. I elicited with 6 little words.
January, oh, okay, I might, the policy on the website, I think, is the problem. So, all that to say is, Chris, can you find that policy? Okay. Yeah, I've given up, I'm too old to find policies, apparently. No, I think the problem is the website doesn't have the most updated information, which is where I went. So, anyhow, here it is right now. Thank you, Chris. All right.
Should have asked Chris all along. He's younger.
That's what happens.
That's why you make the big bucks, Chris.
That's what happens. You get older.
I wouldn't know.
Should have asked the warden. He's younger.
Okay, here it is.
Can't find the computer.
Never mind it.
Where's that Jeopardy music?
It's getting hot in here.
You know what? My brother said this morning he read somewheres where a cup of coffee a day is good for the long-term memory. But he said, I can't remember where I read that.
Oh, my God.
All right, here it is. Council will consider a one-time request outside of the provisions in Section 4. Trust me when I say Section 4 is around May and September, right? Only in extraordinary circumstances based on an urgent matter of municipal interest relating to a special event or activity. So municipal interest, yes. Special event, yes.
One time?
One time, no. Urgent, maybe. Extraordinary, no. So if you see, there's a lot of words there that you had to stick handle through in order to be successful. So one option is maybe that's just not working for you. You change it for the next meeting, and then you can effectively approve the request. Or, because I think we still have time. Okay, and this has been a long discussion over this. I recognize that, but I think the conclusion we came to is that the policy doesn't allow you to do that as currently written. So maybe the right thing to do is to change the policy, bring both of those for approval. First approve the policy, second approve the amount, because it's clear you want to approve the amount.
And we're certainly gonna come up to this, against this again. I mean,
So the one time seems to be the problem.
That's the problem.
The one time, yeah, seems to be the problem.
Yeah.
You may want to put some language in there that it is extraordinary because of the timing involved as well. You may want to add some language because of timing. Whether it be because it's a one time, because of the timing of the issue. It may or may not be one time, but it may be because of the timing. That's what this is, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I guess the idea was not to have the same people come every year, for a special request. Every year, do it on time but in this case, it's kind of hard for them, and I guess if they wait too long, it's also hard to plan for them.
Well, based on where we are, what I would recommend is if council wishes, give us the direction to make the change to the policy. We'll make the change quickly. We'll have the solicitor review the wording to make sure that's okay, and we'll bring it to the next meeting, make a decision on both.
Yep,
Is that fair?
yep, good. Thank you. Councillor Surratt.
I'd like to so move that we do the policy, the first staff to bring policy change to our policy.
Change to our policy?
Change to our policy for grants.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Well, it's a new policy, you can tweak them.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Really.
Really, like from staff's perspective, we'd rather you fix your policy than break your policy.
Yeah.
Because then it gives us the confidence
Yeah.
that we're gonna be following these policies, right?
Yeah.
Policies are meant to be changed, that's okay.
You change the policy, but breaking the policy is not,
Not the greatest,
No.
no,
You can
agree.
occasionally make exceptions to your policy.
yeah.
You can occasionally make exceptions to your
Yeah.
policy, and that's where I was leading, however, I see the momentum for the other
Yeah,
for the CAO solution. Either one has its own pitfalls, neither what I will suggest or what not to do.
okay. Next item, notice of motion by councillors. Does anybody have a notice of motion for future meeting? If not, we'll go to the next question is question period. Does anybody have a question for? Yes,
Just
Mr. Bear.
to clarify, you talked about 9 seats and you talked about 7 seats. Is this council on record as favoring the retention of the status quo of 9 councillors? When you go to the public with the 2 options, will there be, in your presentation, the understanding that your position is to maintain the status quo as far as numbers are concerned?
It's a good question.
There's a motion for that.
There's a
Yeah.
motion that we did.
We did make a motion at a previous meeting saying that we would recommend 9.
So it is the
But-
position of this council, when you have your consultations, that you are bound by the UAR, that you have to present 2 options.
That's right.
But the outlying thing is that your position is it a unanimous position or?
Not unanimous.
It wasn't unanimous.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
There was a lot of good information and reasoning why we decided 9 was the route we would prefer.
Okay.
Even though the motion was to recommend 9, what happens if we're going to the public with this and we see that the public, general consensus within our public meetings states that we should be going with 7, does that mean that our motion to recommend 9 has to stick?
No,
We
no.
have to revisit a motion.
There's a reason for the
As-
Because-
As that motion, you have to revisit the wording of the motion. Did the motion suggest that the 9 is what you would go to the URB
Right.
with?
Right,
Or was it just a preference expressed at that time?
okay.
That's the question. But you can always revisit a motion at any time.
Because the way I see it is, if we're having public consultations, then we have to respect, I think we have to respect the views and the decisions of what the public really feels that we should be doing.
Well,
you
that's
know.
why we're
That-
going
That's
to the
why we
public.
have public.
Yeah,
Because we don't want to go there thinking, no, we're going to give you 2 options, but we're never going to suggest one, you know? We have to go there with an open mind and.
yes, of course.
And listen to what the people out there are saying. Okay, that's why when we said that we had voted on that, it kind of,
But it's like I
but,
said, the UARB is gonna have the last
they're gonna have
word.
the last say anyway,
Yeah.
exactly. But even for recommendation, I think we have to recommend what we feel the majority of the people out there, what their wishes are. That's the way I feel.
We've seen
After
enough, we've seen
consultation.
enough consultations, and I think this council has with Arcadia School and with the CSAP, with the, I say the CSAP, I'm sorry. When the boundary issue came with Argyle provincial boundary, and I can still remember Graham Steele, and I'll go to when the boundary issue came provincially. He was at the PEP school, and he said, I recommend, he was a Minister of Acadian Affairs. He said, I recommend to you that you bring this up to their meetings when we have our meetings, when the committee meets, and you put your suggestions in, consultation, and you bring that up, and then we can make up our mind. Well, you know, diddly do, they never listened to nothing we had to say. And the same thing is happening in Arcadia with the public school there. Closing the school, consultation doesn't mean nothing. I think this council, as Councillor Mew said, let's listen to what the people have to say and bring it back here to discuss.
I should clarify, like, this council, in its process to get to a position, never made a motion, we recommend 9. That was not the wording in the motion, okay? We can get the wording of the motion. Was it? So let's look at the, like, I think it's important. I think I recall, and this is recollection, what the record says is what it is. My recollection is that that this group wanted to bring a revised 9 back for consideration. It was also very clear, as far as I was concerned, that the options of 6 and 5 and 8 were not preferable for a variety of different reasons. And so I think there was clearly a focus on revised 9, don't get me wrong. But I'd like to understand the wording of the motion, and only, like, that's, the minutes speak the truth of the motion, right? So I think, you know.
I was under the impression that it was 9 and that's it. That was my, but again.
We were,
I stand to be corrected.
no, staff was clearly instructed to come back to council with a revised 9.
But in any event, this is an evolving process.
Correct.
We started immediately, actually, commenced this process prior to the last election.
Mm.
Yes. And you continued it. And motions can be revisited if no proper notice is given to council to revisit them. And remember, you've not yet made your motion whereby you make that, the motion, the final motion before going before the URB.
Yeah.
No.
So
Yeah.
like I said, this is an evolving process, and I think any reasonable person would recognize that in the confines of this process.
That's true.
Thank you.
Okay, we're still looking for the motion.
Yes.
Will it be clear, either through that newsletter or information or website, as the implications from boundary changes? So in other words, I have no idea what it means. This boundary changes from, this reallocation, I have no idea what it means. I mean, you probably folks know, but as a public, I have no clue. What is the so what of it? Besides that fact, maybe going from 9 to 7, but even if you retain 9, what's the so what to me if I live on that boundary? I don't, but if I were to, or even if like Wedgeport's getting split, I don't know if it was split before, but what's the so what of that?
Yes,
Okay.
good point.
Will that be all in that newsletter, or will that be part of the pre-information
Well,
for public?
we're not sure it would be in the newsletter, but whenever we're going to put the information out there.
I think we've received instruction from council to move forward with these 2 options in terms of information collection. And so what I think that our next step is that a process has to be brought to council for approval. So staff will be bringing that process back to council. That process may recommend a special newsletter, a special insert. I would expect it would include any and all of those types of correspondence and communications to say the so what around. I think it would include the logic of the decision. How did we get to here? And then why does it matter? What's the fiscal impact? What's the community representation impact on one decision versus another? Certainly, it will be packaged as part of the process for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's critical. Yeah. We didn't get that guidance from you tonight in terms of exactly what you want to look for,
No.
but we actually will do that research on your behalf and bring you options, and then you can make a decision around how you'd like to go forward. And I think, post haste, by, like, that should be done as a matter of priority. Your next meeting, you should have a very solid idea of what the process will be and the approximate timelines. Okay? Now that we have this, we can take that next step for you.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you. Any more questions? I hope that answered your question. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, good, thank you.
Move adjourned.
You have a seconder?
Second.
Still haven't done it?
Meeting's adjourned.